I have felt constantly for some time I want to die peacefully without drugs and interventions unless they alleviate pain or ensure my comfort. Do not resuscitate me. I am happy to die when my body is ready to do so.
Dione Smith's wishes read by her son Chris. She could not have been clearer. This was how she wanted to die, and she regularly updated her living will or advance directive. But when the time came, those wishes were ignored.
She could hardly breathe. She was moaning and aching. She had blood coming from her mouth. Her tongue didn't work. She couldn't swallow. All the vital functions were shutting down. And yet they were giving her antibiotics and medication to keep her alive.
Mrs. Smith was 89. She'd had a heart attack and strokes. She was precisely in the state she'd anticipated and rejected for the end of her life. Her son tried speaking to various staff members until finally he got to the consultant.
And I say, look, I want to show you the documents and explain what I think should happen. And he looks me in the eyes and he says, I don't need to hear what you think.
In the end, Mr. Smith turned to a helpline set up by Compassion and Dying and was guided through the process, including his legal rights.
I was amazed how brutal the system was. I expected a conversation and there was no conversation. It was just like, let us do our job.
Now Compassion and Dying has released findings from a survey of 2,000 people. 26% said the last close friend or family member they know who died had received medical treatment they would not have wanted towards the end of their life. 83% said they would want to prioritise their quality of life over living longer in the last years. And the same number said they would want a doctor to tell them the option of refusing life-sustaining treatment.
People were coming to us increasingly asking for help to ensure that their family members' wishes are respected. So this is family members who lack capacity to make decisions, and the people calling us, the people who love them, are finding they're having to fight against a medical system when they're trying to argue that their family member wouldn't want heroic interventions to prolong their life. And instead they just want to be allowed to die peacefully with their symptoms well supported. And what we found was that people needed the skills and the confidence and the knowledge in the law to be able to advocate for that person.
So Compassion and Dying is now asking for a guarantee of an advance care planning conversation through the NHS Health Check, a public health campaign on advance care planning and mandatory training for healthcare professionals. Talking about death and dying is not always easy for some, and Lucy Pollock, who specialises in the care of the elderly and the frail, told us there needs to be a national conversation.
We need to share understanding, where we need to get our training absolutely spot on for everybody, not just for people who work in palliative care, but for GPs, for people who work in emergency departments, for surgeons, for every physician. It needs to be built into medical training, this deep understanding of what the law is, what the ethical framework is, and that essential thing of listening to what your patient wants and trying to respect their wishes.
It took 3 weeks for the doctors to respect Dione Smith's very clearly set out wishes.
Mercifully, in the end, they agreed to move her on to palliative care. And then it was fine, and they stopped the antibiotics and the blood thinning medication, and they turned up the comfort medication so she wasn't in pain anymore, and she died within a few days.
Yet for all that it was a peaceful death in the end, Mr. Smith's abiding memory is now of what happened in those weeks before, within a system, he said, that did not want to listen.